Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Oxbow Meadows at Columbus State University. Today is Wildlife Wednesday. Today we're going to do something special for our Wildlife Wednesday episode since it is a holiday coming up. Does anyone know what holiday is coming up this weekend? If you guessed Independence Day, you're right. It also is called the 4th of July because it falls on the 4th day of July, and today is the 1st of July. So today we're going to be giving some of our turtles, our box turtles that you were just watching, and our tortoises a special 4th of July treat, a little bit early. So you can follow me into the back and help me prepare a special treat for enrichment today for our turtles. So you can follow me behind the scenes for where we prepare some of our diets. And here I have to wash out your dog's dishes and get them ready. So I have their plates ready. Today we're going to feed them something special. So we're going to focus on 4th of July. What colors do you think of? Well, I thought of red, white, and blue. And I was wondering if you could think of any foods that are red that we could feed our tortoises. When I thought of red foods, I thought of some different produce, so fruits and vegetables. I have 2 red apples here. I think they're Gala. I have a red tomato, it looks a little bit orange, but that's a different shade of red. And lastly, I also thought of a bell pepper. So these are just a few of the red foods that I could think of. I was wondering if you could think of any blue foods. Blue foods are a little bit harder for me to think of. There are some grapes that look a little bit purplish of blue, but of course, over here on our refrigerator, I have some blueberries. So we're going to feed our tortoises some red and some blue fruits and vegetables. And lastly, the hardest color of foods to think of for me was white. Can you think of any fruits or vegetables that are white? Well, other than the outside leaves, if you peel this cabbage, as you go closer and closer to the middle, it's going to get paler and paler in color and be almost white. Also, can you think of what color the inside of an apple is? This is sort of a double whammy here. We have red on the outside, and I'm using a knife today. If you ever use a knife, be sure you use caution and ask for adult supervision. And if you look inside the apple, it's sort of white. It's a little green in there, but usually it's white in there also. So we're going to chop up a little bit of our food for our tortoises and our box turtles today, obviously using precaution with a knife and using my cutting board. So first off, we're going to start with our white foods. This is sort of the base of their diet. A lot of our turtles actually eat lettuce and kale and collard greens. There we go. All right, so as you see as I break that open, there's some more of that white for that red, white, and blue treat today. So this is not the food our animals always eat. Our tortoises get a lot of collard greens, turnip greens, and lately they've been foraging for even things like clovers in our discovery forest. So this is sort of the base of their diet, but this is a treat. Just like my South Columbus Elementary students at our after-school program, their favorite day was their special treat day. So this is actually a special treat day for our tortoises and our box turtles, since you all are joining us. So our tortoises, we have 2 different types of tortoises here at Oxbow Meadows. We have our African sulcata tortoises that we'll actually be visiting and delivering one of these snacks to. And we also have our gopher tortoises. So gopher tortoises are native to Georgia, right here in Columbus. You can even find a gopher tortoise out near like Fort Benning area. So our gopher tortoises can eat more fruits and vegetables. I want you to think while you're at home while I cut up our cabbage here. Can you think of which of these items are fruits and which are vegetables? That's really important for us at Oxbow to be able to tell the difference, because animals like our sulcata tortoises, they eat mostly vegetables. The fruit we usually save for our gopher tortoises. And there's a reason for that. Different animals eat different things or have different diets, of course. Our land turtles that we have here at Oxbow, we have 2 different types of eaters. We have our box turtles that are omnivores, which means they'll eat plants like fruits and vegetables, but they'll also eat things like bugs and worms. And our tortoises, they wouldn't eat bugs. The tortoises, both the gopher tortoises and the African sulcata tortoises, there's something called plant eaters. I'm wondering if anybody out there in our audience knows what a plant-only eater is called. Like our tortoises, the gophers and the sulcata. I'm going to move my blueberries and move some of our other colored foods out of the way so we can start to prepare our white. And again, it is green on the outside, so I'll give them a little bit of green too. Even though that's not a 4th of July color to celebrate. So our box turtles are omnivores. And if plants are the only thing that our tortoises eat, that would make them an herbivore. So if you guessed herbivore, you're right. The other thing I sort of want you to notice with our first food item, it will be the same for all of our foods, the red, white, and the blue, is the size. So I chopped up those vegetables and that's pretty big. You might be able to eat that as a human and take some bites. And our tortoises, they can do the same. They can eat some bigger chunks of food. But as we prepare the food for our smaller animals, we're going to cut the food a little bit smaller. So for our box turtles, they obviously have a smaller mouth and a smaller head, and a smaller body actually. So we're going to cut their food a little bit smaller so that it's safe for them. So cut up our base of our salad, that cabbage. We're calling it our white food for today, for that red, white, and blue diet. So we have a little bit for our eastern box turtles. And we'll also get some ready for our 3-toed box turtles. The 3-toed box turtles were the turtles you were watching while you were waiting for our episode to get started. A good rule of thumb from our animal curator for our box turtles is to only give a box turtle something the size of the space between their eyes. That's a good way to tell that they won't choke on it or it won't give them any kind of problems. Obviously in the wild their food doesn't get chopped up, but in the wild they don't get treats either. Here's a little bit for our 3-toed box turtles. As you can see, each of our exhibits has their own little food dish. So some animals do share in their exhibits. Our box turtles all share their plates with their fellow exhibit animals. And we have our tortoises outside, the gopher tortoises, who hang outside in their burrows, and they share a dish too. So just like you might have brothers or sisters at home and you might share food with them, our exhibit animals, they share a dish as well. So there is a little bit for our other box turtle exhibit. We do have a behind the scenes box turtle exhibit as well. And last but not least, they don't come to our programs very often, so you may have never met them, even if you're one of our regulars. We have 2 juvenile eastern box turtles. So we have 2 little baby box turtles that are only about a year or 2 old. So I'm going to make sure I cut their food nice and tiny. And again, that's for the animal's safety, because a smaller animal needs smaller foods. So there we go. We have a little bit of that small cabbage cut up. And now that it's in the dish, it looks a little bit more white. If you want to get a close-up of right over here, that dish is looking a little bit more white in color, though it is a little bit green, I do acknowledge. All right, I'm going to chop up the rest of this little, or big head, cabbage, give those eastern box turtle exhibits out in the exhibit hall a little bit more for the base of their salad, and then we'll get to the yummy stuff, the red and the blue foods. I don't know how many of you out there eat cabbage. It doesn't have a lot of flavor to it, but of course it is very healthy to eat different lettuces and to eat salad. That's pretty good. So I give it over to the tortoises. So any of these big chunks, I'm just going to go ahead and put on the bigger turtle's plate. Sometimes the best tools are your hands, even when you have a tool like a knife. Alright. Alright, now that we have the base of our salad, that white food down, I'm going to go ahead and get started on our first red food. Anyone remember what this food was? It had red on the outside, and then it's sneaky, it has that white on the inside. So this was our apple. I did say that our tortoises, the African sulcata tortoises, don't eat a lot of fruit. They actually only get it maybe once a month or a few times a year. So today will be an extra special treat for our African sulcata tortoises. So they will get a little bit of apple, but not very much. And again, that's just because that's the type of eater that they are. So different animals have different diets, and fruit just isn't really part of their diet in Africa. All right, so we have some nice big chunks of apple. Can you guess what plate the big chunks are going to go to? If you guessed the big turtles, you're right. Turtles are pretty cool too, because all animals have a mouth of some sort to eat. A lot of animals have very cool or strange mouths. But turtles, even though that they have a mouth, they don't have teeth like we do. Turtles have sort of like a beak, like a bird. So the tortoises will crunch down with their big beaks on some of these food items. Here I'm just slicing the apples. You can julienne or chop if you're into cooking shows. I love cooking in the kitchen, but of course always use caution when you're using tools, like a knife. Sprinkle some more of those big chunks on our tortoise platters here. These are actually old lunch trays, similar to what you may have eaten on at school. And this apple, since we have our smaller turtles, they don't need very much. We're going to cut this into smaller pieces. And I'm going to cut out that core. A lot of animals don't really eat the core of an apple. And we're going to slice it nice and small. So you can see it nice and small for our box turtles. So if you remember, these plates over here are our box turtles, and my big trays are the bigger turtles. So I'm going to slice it nice and small. Again, that good rule of thumb from our animal curator is no bigger than the space the turtles can chop it themselves with their beak. It just helps them for safety. So our animals, just like a dog at home, they might get treats sometimes. So this is what I would call a treat in our everyday world, but in the animal world, at zoos and aquariums and nature centers like Oxbow Meadows, we call this something called enrichment. So enrichment is a treat for an animal, anything that gives them mental or physical stimulation. And just like if you got a big juicy watermelon for 4th of July, and I hope you do, it makes you excited or it gives you a little bit extra boost, mentally and maybe even physically because it has lots of water in it. A lot of our tortoises will actually get a lot of the water that they need from their diet right from the fruits and vegetables that you see on their dishes. And as you see when we do go to their exhibit, I'll go ahead and throw out that fork. As you see in their exhibit, they also have a water dish. Usually they'll use their water dish mostly for taking a bath, sometimes using the bathroom more than drinking it. But they do get a lot of their moisture or their water from their food. All right, and if you remember, we have these two little dishes here for those juvenile or baby box turtles. So I'm going to chop a little bit extra fine or extra small for them. So we're going to do tiny little cuts. So that it can fit into their little tiny mouths. So apple is a normal diet item, something that they would get on a regular feeding schedule here at Oxbow Meadows for the box turtles. Our gopher tortoises will also get some fruit from time to time. But these two platters here, the red and the orange, these are our sulcata tortoises, the African sulcata tortoises, also called a spur tortoise. They don't get fruit very often, so it will be an extra treat for them today. So next step, now that we got our apple done, and if you remember, I asked a question if that was a fruit or a vegetable. If you guessed that the apple was a fruit, you're right. This is a tomato, which is technically a fruit, but we sometimes call it a vegetable too. This is a diet item that all of our turtles that live on land or terrestrial can eat kind of on a daily basis or part of their normal diet. So again, I'm just slicing. I like to slice one direction and then come back the other way. And we're going to sprinkle these bigger pieces of this nice juicy tomato. This is actually from my garden at home. We're going to sprinkle it onto that tortoise plate. So now they have the white food, that cabbage. They have a little bit of that apple that is also white but red on the outside, and some tomato on there too. So of course there's different shades of colors. This orangish reddish tomato is a different color than the next red item we're going to give them before we move on to blue.
So we have a question. Somebody wants to know if we feed the box turtles every day.
That's a great question. So in the wild, box turtles and a lot of other animals are what we call opportunistic. Does anyone have a guess what opportunistic might mean? It's a really big word, but it kind of gives itself away there with that first part, opportunity. So turtles, like box turtles, would be opportunistic, or they would eat whenever they had the chance to, whenever they found food. So sometimes that might be once a day. It might only be once every couple of days. So it really depends on when they find their food or have that opportunity to eat. Here at Oxbow Meadows, our turtles eat 3 to 4 times a week for our box turtles, and our tortoises, they're sort of pigs, they eat every single day. But that's normal for them. They do need to eat more regularly since they are a bigger animal. Animals that use a lot of their energy have to eat more often. If you think of like a hummingbird, they move very, very, very fast. So they have to eat a lot of food. But of course they're eating different things than what we're feeding today. So this last red food I have, I should have showed you before I started to cut it up. That was our red bell pepper. So that's a nice deep red, sort of the red you think of with 4th of July, I think. So again, I'm going to give some nice big chunks to those bigger tortoises with their bigger beaks. This is again another food item that they would regularly eat or would be part of their normal diet. So that grand finale of the blueberries will be the most exciting. These also aren't the normal amounts of food we'd give. We'd normally give our tortoises a little bit more food. They're going to eat a big meal tomorrow for the holiday. So since we are preparing for the holiday, this is just a little extra treat for them, and they'll get their diet tomorrow. Same thing for our box turtles. This is just a little extra, a little something nice for them. And they will get their regular feeding tomorrow of their worms and maybe even a pinky mouse. That's one of the box turtles' favorite foods. All right, and I'm going to save a couple of these chunks and cut them up a little bit smaller for our smaller turtles. So a good way to prepare our animal diets is sort of chop the food real big and then get finer and finer as you get down to the smaller and smaller turtle species. Turtle is also kind of a funny word because turtle could mean one that lives in the water or one that lives on land. Tortoise is the word that we use for a terrestrial or a land turtle. And usually turtles are aquatic. I wonder if anyone out there knows what an aquatic turtle is. We're not actually feeding any of our aquatic turtles today because they live in the water. So our aquatic turtles also eat about 3 times a week, and they'll be eating tomorrow. They like to eat bugs, maybe even some fish. I just caught some minnow snacks or minnow enrichment for some of our aquatic turtles that they'll probably enjoy eating a little later this afternoon or tomorrow. I'm going to chop up this last part. I like to use as much as I can, both at home and for the animals, so we don't waste any food. So that's, probably even get a little more off of there. That's all we're throwing away today. I'm going to chop these nice and small for those little box turtles. Those tortoises are on their own. They have those big beaks. They can chop the size of food that they have. And we'll move on here to our finale. So we did our red food and our white food. Can anyone think what color we're missing? I'm going to do these a little bit littler. A little bit littler. There we go. If you remember that we're still missing the blue food, that's what we're going to move on to next. And I'm going to put my knife aside because we don't really have to chop up blueberries very much. So again, there's that beautiful blue. That's one of my favorite fruits, are blueberries. And with these, I'm just going to sort of sprinkle them on top. That almost looks like a salad that I would enjoy at home. I don't know about you, but that looks pretty good. I don't want to give them too much and upset their stomach. Like I said, they don't eat it very often, the sulcata tortoises. So I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, what would happen? They sometimes get diarrhea. So that's the worst that would happen. It would just maybe mess up their stomach a little bit. Just like if you give your dog too many treats, it's just not good for their belly. It's like you eating a whole bowl of ice cream and no dinner. So I'm going to sprinkle some over here onto our box turtles. And I'm going to mush it up a little bit just with my fingers again. That wonderful tool that we have. For the little baby juvenile turtles. Ooh, that one exploded in my hands. And we'll do over here. I do sort of have an oddball dish over here. This is actually our bearded dragon dish. So George, if you've ever met, he's one of our favorites in our programs. He loves his bugs, but he doesn't always eat his fruits and vegetables. But of course, we always offer it to him. Maybe he'll eat a little bit of his 4th of July diet today since it's a little bit more exciting. I'll give him a couple blueberries and a little chop of our red pepper that we have left over. So I don't think George will eat it, but he will be offered a little enrichment or 4th of July snack. So the last thing I want to just very briefly talk about, we don't feed our animals a lot of white food, but something really important that we do have to feed our animals is every Monday, our animals get their vitamins. So just like you may or may not eat vitamins or nutrients at home, this is called Rectivite. And this is a powder. Run it over the trash can just so it don't spill. It's a powder, and if you can see it on camera, it might be a little hard. That powder is white, so I'm going to sprinkle just a little tiny bit of vitamins onto their dishes. And today is Wednesday, so it's not Monday. It's not actually vitamin day, but to keep with our white theme, they can have just a little bit of extra vitamins. And we kind of sneak it in there and put it on their yummy food so they eat it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take off my gloves. And we are going to, we're going to stack the trays up so I can get the door. We are going to take our yummy, delicious diets to our tortoises and see if they'd like to enjoy some today. So this is our back room. Our tortoises usually outside, they eat lots of grass during the day. But if you're in Georgia, you know that it was just thunderstorming. So our tortoises did have to come back inside just in time to eat their yummy snack. So my orange tray over here is for Gilligan. Gilligan is our boy, African sulcata. And this here is Bertha. So we're going to give Bertha her snack and we'll see if she eats that special food. And I'll wake up Norma here. She was taking an afternoon nap. And we'll see if Norma wants to share. So these are two tortoises that do share their dish. So if you see they're using their senses, they smell those blueberries that they don't get to eat very often. There goes Norma for that apple. So as we said, these tortoises are herbivores, so they wouldn't eat any bugs. They only eat fruits and vegetables, and these ones mostly eat vegetables. I like hearing the noise of them munching. I don't know if you can hear that on camera, but you can hear them snacking. See if Bertha will go for those blueberries. Oh, there she goes. Yum. Tortoise. So the other two you were just watching are girls. They're sisters, we think. And this is the brother. So this is the boy. So he does live in the other stall so he doesn't have to share that plate of fruits and veggies. So his was a little bit smaller since he doesn't have to share. But he's a lot bigger. I'm not sure exactly how much he weighs, but I will tell you he's just heavy. They are not full grown yet. All 3 of these African sulcata tortoises are juveniles, so they still have some growing to do. Believe it or not, they're gonna get even bigger. Gilligan's munching on a piece of apple. Let's see what he goes for next. You can hear him crunching that cabbage. Cabbage is a little crunchier than romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce. And if you can see on his tray, it might be a little hard to see. You can see all that moisture, all that water from that fruits and vegetables. Norma's going to town over here. Usually our animals, when they get their food, they'll go and stand right on top of their dish. The girls are having manners right now. No one's walked on their dish yet. So again, this is just a special treat. Our tortoises will get their normal diet tomorrow. They eat lots of collard greens, turnip greens, big green leafy vegetables, and maybe a little bit of carrot or tomato, but they will go back to their normal diet tomorrow. This is just a special treat. I did say a big word that we use here at Oxbow Meadows and in zoos and aquariums. Does anyone remember what a treat or a special experience is called? When we feed our alligators, this is another form of enrichment. Enrichment is a treat or an experience, something that stimulates or gets their minds or bodies active. Thanks for joining us for Wildlife Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed seeing our tortoises, enjoy some of their delicious snacks, and I hope you have a wonderful and safe 4th of July. We'll see you next time.